Hello, everybody, this is Purge, and I'm bringing you guys a very fast changelog coming through. 6.76 just came out recently. I'm going to go over this. I've done this before. I think you guys know the drill. I will read things, I will tell you my thoughts of them, and then hopefully you will enjoy watching. So, starting things off, Alchemist. Unstable Concoction now explodes if you're killed while charging up. Okay, and he did also get a buff to Goblin's Greed Cap, which means that if you're actually in major farming mode, his gold farm does go up a lot. I'm a little scared about this change because I already think Alchemist's farm rate is pretty insane based on the previous patch, so we'll see how this goes. Keep in mind, Alchemist isn't as strong of a hero with a lot of farm as a hero like Anti-Mage, but his farm rate is sick. It's absolutely sick. Now, Chilling Touch, attack count is increased, so this skill is slightly better than it was before. I think there is going to be a point where people start skilling Chilling Touch. I think the main reason people don't is because AA has HP problems, and especially when he's played as a support, which is the most popular way to play him right now, he is going to have more needs of getting stat levels than skill points, and always will be behind on HP usually, so it's usually important for him to not grab Chilling Touch. But I think Chilling Touch actually can see some play. You can use it to clear creep waves. It's very mana expensive, but I'm kind of hypothesizing item builds like Tread's Vitality Booster with a bottle, maybe something like that, just for a lot of survivability, and then you can start skilling Chilling Touch and all the other stuff. I think that's how I would like to see Ancient Apparition played myself, and then maybe grab like a Yule Scepter if you really want to for mana. But I think too many A's grab mana first, they need HP. Arc Warden, I am not going to talk about this, I haven't played the hero yet. Bane Elemental, cooldown decrease from 12 to 10 for Enfeeble. Pretty cool, Enfeeble's getting better and better. He now can wake himself up from Nightmare with a sub-ability, which is really cool. So now you can actually Nightmare yourself to dodge spells, and then wake yourself afterwards, which is really sweet. There is a very small period of time where you can dodge spells with Nightmare. If right before the nuke comes you Nightmare yourself, you're invulnerable for just a little bit. So I think you can actually use that for skill things now, which is pretty cool. Batrider's strength gain is decreased. It was a little too strong. Batrider's a huge pick right now, and that's partially because of it, because his strength gain was buffed by so much. Centaur has some slight changes. His strength growth is increased, so his base strength growth is increased by a lot. I think this is probably the highest in the game now, I would guess, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to check. His ulti is now replaced with a new skill called Stampede, so it grants you and all your allied player units on the map max movement speed and 0 unit collision for a short duration. So this is like phase boots plus haste. Any enemy units you or your allies come into collision with take some damage and get stunned. Enemies can only be affected by Stampede impact once. That means as the team fight starts, you want to cast Stampede, and then you and all of your allies run through your opponents. You do damage of 100 to 200 plus 2 times your strength. Cool, I didn't realize that was strength based. The stun is 1.25 seconds, and there's a collision AoE. Cooldown is pretty short, and the mana cost is tiny, 50 mana. This is pretty cool because it is going to allow him to not only just give a little bit more team contribution, but also position better. What's the duration again? 3, 4, 5 seconds. So you can actually initiate with this with max movement speed. I don't know if this is going to work on a Centaur itself, like if he Helm of the Dominator's creeps. I wonder if it's similar to Lycan ulti, but it's pretty cool. I like this a lot. Max movement speed, you can use it for escaping. It's like an Uber drum. You could pop a drum of endurance, and then everybody runs away, or runs away if they're scared, or runs aggressive if they need to. If a support here is being dove on by a hard carry, all of a sudden you walk into the guy and he gets stunned. It sounds like a really cool ability. I love this remake. Really cool stuff. Though I think Centaur could possibly see some play before this ulti remake, I'm still happy with it. It's pretty sweet. Chen, Hand of God. Cooldown has shifted, so it's increased as a nerf to Hand of God. Penitence damage has been amplified slightly to match the slow value. So very, very slight nerf to Penitence, which won't affect very much because almost nobody gets a Chen to a level where Penitence is useful. And Hand of God is now nerfed at level 6, so Chen getting some more slight nerfs, which I think is probably fine. Clockwork's Hookshot now pulls Clockwork to allies instead of getting blocked by them, so if you accidentally hook an ally, you'll go to them instead of breaking the chain and just failing your ulti completely. And Aghanim Scepter cooldown has been decreased by 3 seconds. Cool stuff. Crystal Maiden Brilliant Sword now twice the effect on Crystal Maiden. This is really cool. I think we'll maybe see CMs pick up at least one level of the aura, because now it gives yourself 1 mana per second, which is a massive amount. Plus all the mana going to your allies as well is very good as well. So at the very least, it's going to allow you to spam your spells more often, and that's where Crystal Maiden is really strong. It's by casting Crystal Nova and Frostbite, and if you can use them for Harass more often in lane, which you will be able to, I mean, it's going to take more time. What is that, 100 seconds or so to get enough mana from a Nova, plus more. But that's not bad. At every 100 seconds, that's a minute and 40 seconds. Could be worse. Could be worse. And that's all from Brilliant. So if you get 2 levels, bam, you get a free nuke every, 50 seconds instead or something like that. That's pretty awesome. Darkseer's been nerfed again. Vacuum cooldown increased, so it's the nerf to vacuum cooldown. I think this is deserved. I don't think this is necessarily going to make Darkseer stop being a top pick or ban. I think he's going to have to receive a nerf to his ulti, maybe, before things get really serious. His ulti is, I think, still a little too good, because it seems like when you vacuum onto Wall of Replica, the heroes go down by a huge percentage of HP, at least in the mid game. Even like the mid game, you can drop half of their HP with an ulti combo. It feels like it's very scary, and vacuum's always going to be good no matter what you do with it, I think. So that will be like that. Doom duration increased. That is fine. True Shot Aura Draw Ranger got some moderate changes. It's now global, or it gives you and your allied ranged units a portion of your agility as bonus damage. So it's going to be still probably about the same numbers for Draw Ranger. It was previously based on your base damage. I'm going to guess. I looked at something on Reddit that had the numbers and statistics, and it looked like Draw Ranger is now, well, I'll go over marksmanship first, and then I'll talk about that. Passively, this is her ulti adjustment. It passively provides bonus agility, that's the same. If there's no nearby enemy heroes, your focus improves and the bonus agility is doubled. So that means when you're farming, your agility doubled. Huge buff. Difference is that they did just remove the major agility buff for level 3. It was previously, I think, like 15, 30, 60. So now your agility bonus is better at 6. And the agility bonus at level 3 is lower when you're by heroes, higher when you're away from heroes. Now keep in mind, the AoE is 375, and Draw Ranger's attack range is a little over 600, like 625 I think. So that means if you're attacking any enemy hero from range, max range, you're still going to get that double agility, and 80 agility is freaking insane. That's like, keep in mind, a butterfly, 30 agility. So yeah, 80 bonus agility for marksmanship if you're away from allies, or enemy heroes. Really cool, and it does increase her farm rate and her last hitting power. So all around cool, and the coolest thing about this is that since it increases her farm rate and her last hitting power, it's going to help her, despite being a ranged hero, actually catch up to some of the other flash farming heroes. I mean, even Medusa has better farm as a ranged hero, because she actually does have AoE with split shot. Not that she's in Dota 2 yet, but I like this change. I think it's very cool. Anyways, the True Shot Aura, the reason it's not OP because it's global is because the average ranged hero is not going to have high agility. And most importantly, this is going to apply, I mean, think of how many agility ranged heroes there are. There's not that many, or, well, you know what we'd have to look at is heroes that have really high agility gain. This would be actually good for a hero like Queen of Pain. Queen of Pain has relatively high agility. So for example, it's still not going to be that massive though, because if I think about a Queen of Pain in the mid game, she's going to have maybe 60 agility max, and if we do the math on that, 26% of 60 is probably only about 15 damage. But this is global, and Draw Rangers do usually max with the True Shot Aura semi-early, and they may be more encouraged to do so now. So I kind of like it. It's kind of interesting. It's an interesting change to the hero. I would actually love to see something like Vengeful Spirit with Draw Ranger, something that was done in the past, but Venge is an agility hero, so I assume she has pretty good agility gain. So Venge could actually get some decent damage out of it. You could do something like Queen of Pain mid, Vengeful Spirit supporting Draw Ranger. You could have a long lane Windrunner for bonus damage to her, and then maybe like an Enigma or something. A lot of ranged heroes, it's all ranged heroes, but not the end of the world to have all ranged heroes, but that's something you could do just for fun. Think about it. Kind of cool. So try to get, if you do end up playing with Draw Rangers, try to at least hopefully have ranged heroes preferably. Which I guess you should have been doing before, but now you can do it globally, which is cool. So better laning for everybody. Not a lot of damage at level 1. 14% of your base agility is pretty shit. So, alright, that is Draw Ranger. Gyrocopter, homing missile distance required for max damage is reduced, so that means that you are more likely to do more damage with your missile. At all ranges, I believe, because I assume it scales as a percentage basis. Homing mail, the stun duration is increased, or scaled, sorry, it's rescaled. So it does less stun duration at early levels and more stun duration at later levels. So at level 3, it's stun duration is up. This means it's going to actually encourage you to put skill points in the level, which some players in the past have only done 1, just because the stun duration is already up there. Rocket Barrage damage is also increased by 11 to 23. So the scaling is slightly better for Rocket Barrage. I don't know if this is going to make Gyrocopter playable yet, but it's kind of nice little buffs. Ice Path has been, or Jakiro's been nerfed. Ice Path creation delay has increased, so it's more delayed to cast a spell, which is good. Makes it harder to land. And the mana cost is buffed up, or nerfed, actually, which also completely deserved nerfs. I think the buffs to Jakiro were a little too high. Crobulus base ghost count increased from 410-18 to 412-21. This means that Crobulus is better late game, mid to late game with ghost counts. She'll have more damage, better at pushing towers. I don't think this is going to make her see play. I actually kind of wish there was an early base buff to Crobulus, because that would allow for, she would be stronger early mid. That's really where she has trouble. I mean, if you buff her ghost count late game, that means that you're saying, okay, I want to make her better late against hard carries, which is an area where she currently struggles, but I don't think a 3 ghost count increase is really going to make the difference, because her strength as a hero is really mid-game. It's not really, she's okay early if she tanks up, but it's really about the mid game tower pushing with your allies. Late game, okay, maybe she'll be better at winning late game fights against a hero like Anti-Mage, but Anti-Mage is always going to beat a Crop late game, usually. Kunkka's Tidebringer level 4 AoE has increased. Lena's Laguna Blade cooldown is rescaled. It's even lower now, down to 70 seconds. 70 seconds, that's insane. Very, very good at level 1 now. It used to be like 120 or something ridiculous. Now it's much lower. Lion Mana Drake break threshold range has increased. So Mana Drain is slightly better. Mana Drain is getting buffed so much. Finger of Death cooldown is rescaled. Keep in mind Lena's ulti cooldown is by far shorter than Finger of Death. It's not even close. But Lion does have multiple disables, so kind of makes sense. Finger of Death cast range has increased. This is the base cast range. That's insane. Lena's Laguna Blade with an Aghanims is 900 range. And now Lion's is 900 base, which is pretty interesting. Lion is getting quite a few buffs right now. Would be kind of fun to see him again as a support, but we'll see. Now Lunar Blessing bonus damage increase, so it scales better late. It's better late, still better at level 1, but this is going to encourage people to actually max out the skill a little bit earlier. And make the hero slightly better from an ally. This is pretty insane though, 38 damage to everybody in your team that's really good. There's another hero you can match with Draw Entry, even though you don't want 2 carries. Magnetar's Shockwave distance increased, pretty huge buff there. That's a big range to increase. Shockwave cooldown is decreased, so Shockwave better. The cast range is increased to match its travel distance. Cast range increased to match its travel. Okay, I think this means that you can actually cast based on how far it goes. Like before, it's kind of like Keep of the Lights Illuminate. You'd have to cast it pretty close to your hero and then kind of aim it based on that if you wanted a really long range shot. Now you can actually you can click on the ground based on where you want it to go at max distance, so that's kind of cool. Skewer AoE has increased. I like that. Skewer was a little hard to land before. The range has also increased by a shitload. Wow. That's huge. And it only considers heroes as a valid target for dragging consideration with its unit cap. That's cool. So I guess that means you can possibly skewer unlimited amounts of creeps, I'm guessing is what that means. I might be wrong in that. So that means if you are dragging 1,000 creeps and then you finally find 4 heroes, then you can bring them all with you, because there's only count those for the cap. I think that's what that means. So Skewer is better, Shockwave is better, which is 2 skills that make Magnetar better in the mid game. Meepo, poof cooldown decreased. So Meepo is getting buffed, and now cool buff here. Divided We Stand Aghanim Scepter upgrade now also gives clones 100% stat sharing. This is a big deal because previously before, I believe Meepo was only his illusions, his duplicates of his primary hero were getting only 33% of the stats that his primary hero were getting. So for example, if we talk about a Meepo getting a heart is a terrible item for Meepo to get because the 300 HP that you get on the primary Meepo only applies to the primary Meepo. The regen only goes to his primary Meepo, and the 40 strength that you purchase, that's part of the heart, 33% of that goes to your Meepos. So you're literally only giving your Meepos, like, what is that, 13 strength, something like that, 14 strength, pretty shitty amounts. Now if you get an Aghanim Scepter, that means that all strength items you get are applied to your Meepos. It doesn't include the 300 HP from the heart, or the 400, or whatever the hell it is, but you do get the 40 strength. Now that would mean that it's probably not worth buying a heart, but it's probably worth picking up a Reaver, because a Reaver is 100% effectiveness towards all your Meepos. So huge effectiveness from that. There's not really, I thought about this last night when I was going to bed, but there's not really like a lot of effectiveness you get out of the other components, so it'd actually be kind of worth it for a Meepo to just go Aghanim Scepter with a Reaver and leave it at that. You don't have to get, I think Mech is still required and Blink Dagger possibly still required. Vlad's is also very, very good, but you could just buy a Reaver and leave it at that. You could also get an Eagle Song, 25 agility to all of your Meepos. It's probably not as good as a Reaver, but the attack speed I think it's still going to be maybe an AC. I don't know. It opens up build possibilities. I think that's the coolest thing about it. You could just rush Aghanim's Blink and opt for a lot of poof damage. You could go the more support build and go mech with AC and Vlad's and have all these auras with Pipe or whatever, but I do like the fact that this is applied, because it is going to make the Aghanim Scepter upgrade possible, and more likely to be played. Maybe I'll try it out. Meepo kind of a hard hero to play in pubs, though. Murata getting a slight buff to Arrow, 20 to 17 cooldown. It used to be 25 not 6 months ago, so this is a pretty massive buff. Moonlight Shadow mana cost is decreased by a lot. I like this a lot. It does make her ulti easier to cast. Like, if you don't have to be like, wow, I don't want to cast my ulti because I'm going to lose half my mana pool, just to say, maybe save one guy. So it'll allow for this spell to be cast more. Morphling Hit gets a buff, cast animation time improved. I think this is actually needed. I think he actually got nerfed a little too hard. His base damage was reduced, more 50% increase on mana cost, and all all of his animation times went up. And his animation time felt a little slow for Adaptive Strike, so I think this is okay to see this buff on Morphling. Morphling is barely touched right now. Naga Siren gets a nerf. Riptide cooldown rescaled from 10 to 19, 16, 13, 10. This means that Riptide is worse early game, but it's not that big of a nerf because almost every Naga Siren is going to max out Riptide by level 7, so the cooldown will still be back down there. But you won't be able to just like dominate, harass with Riptide at level 1 or level 2 anymore. Necrolite, Heartstopper, Aura damage is increased. Necrolite gets more buffs, 1.5% of max HP at level 4. Just do the math for a second, guys. If you're in a 10-second team fight, 15% of every enemy creep in unit's HP and hero is gone. 10%. That's insane. Or 15%, sorry, in 10 seconds. That's a lot. And most team fights are relatively fast, so if you do the math out there, if somebody has 2,000 HP, you're talking about 300 damage being done just by standing next to them. It's pretty cool. If they have 1,000 HP, it's only 150, but that's still something. It's pretty cool. It's not something that you really think about while a fight's happening, but it is a big deal. Nubian Assassin, Vendetta damage increase. Nurb gets another buff. Very, very slight buff. Not a whole lot of damage. 25 damage across the board. Nurb actually getting kind of scary in my opinion. I think he is starting to become a pain in the butt to play against. Weaver gets a base damage increase by 4. I think this is cool. This is very good because it does double your damage basically whenever you do a Geminate attack. So think of an extra 8 damage every time you harass basically, which is cool. Obsidian Destroyer base movement speed is increased by 10. Pretty big buff there. Not the biggest deal in the world, but considering he doesn't have the best chase opportunities, even after you banish somebody, they're going to run away. And I like the movement speed buff. Plus, he is a little bit of a glass cannon because he's a little too squishy. Ogre Magi, multicast now increases cast range of Ignite by 150 per level. I think this is pretty cool. So this is going to make Ignite a little bit better in terms of range. Omni Knight Purification cooldown decrease, movement speed increase. Okay, that's fine. Phantom Lancer Collision Side decrease from 24 to 8. Wow, so that means that it's going to be easier for your illusions to surround somebody. Well, here's the negative though. If your collision size decreases, that means it's harder to block your opponents, but it's easier for a mass of your unit to surround somebody, which I think is on average going to be a buff to the hero because usually you have like 8 lances and you're like, I want to kill this guy, and then you right click and then your lances or your phantoms kind of like start surrounding it, and then they have to run from in front of the guy to all the way around him. So if the collision side is smaller, that means there's more surface area right next to the guy from where you're standing to hit him. So that means it should be, and the collision size, I don't know if that is a hard number, I don't know exactly how the numbers work, but if it's 8 to 24, that means 3 Phantom Lancers can fit within the space that a previous Phantom Lancer did not. So that's a big implementation. If a mass of Phantom Lancers goes to right click a guy, they will be doing their damage faster. It's not going to take as much time to surround the guy, or at least get more surface area of phantoms. I might be wrong on that one, but that's just kind of my theory crafting here. Phoenix has been changed a bit. Fire Spirit's duration. I unfortunately can't really comment on Phoenix very much because I haven't played him since they reworked him, but I think they changed Sunray again back to the way it was before at the patch before. Icarus Dive is changed now. It does damage over time. It's kind of like the way it was before as well, except it does damage per second and some slow. So there's slow done by Icarus Dive. It still does not stop the disarm. Sunray is no longer channeling. You can control it before with this direction as well as the use of Drift Sub ability. And Sunray heals allies. So kind of weird. It no longer slows, costs HP per second. Base damage is changed. I think it's back to the way it was before. That looks a lot like the way it was before. Fire Spirits can be cast while using Sunray. That's really cool. You couldn't do that before a long time ago with Phoenix. I have a couple of Phoenix gameplays from Dota 1 that were really good, but he's kind of an overpowered hero, so it made sense. You just like solo him mid, and he would be a strength hero, so he had tons of HP, and then he had his ulti and his dive, and there were so many ways for him to not die, and he was so easy to gank with. You could just do like a guaranteed 600 nuke damage on anybody under tower. And whether or not they had creeps there, it was way too easy to get kills with them. Puck's base damage is increased by 5. This is going to make him a better soloer. That's very good. That's the main reason that people don't play Puck right now. They don't draft him on high levels because his base damage isn't high enough to really allow him to do fast bottle. So this is a big difference. 5 damage. It may not seem like it at low levels, but I can promise you guys, at very, very tip-top high levels of laning, it's a huge impact in the laning stage. 5 damage nerf or buff is big. Puck should be able to get better last hits, which means more experience for him. He should be able to outlane his opponents a little bit more. And especially with heroes like TA beat in the scene right now, you need every bit of damage you can get to try to last hit them. Pugna, life drain break threshold range is increased, so you can life drain longer if you have vision. Nether ward AoE has increased to a stable 1600, so Nether ward is better at 1 level. Pretty cool. Razor Eye of the Storm's strike interval has been increased, so it's better now. I still don't think this is going to make the difference. I don't think Razor's still going to... I don't think he's going to see play still. Rubik's Fade Bolt damage has been nerfed by 20 at max level. I think this is great. Fade Bolt is really good, one of the best spells in the game, I think. The bounce radius has been decreased since the last patch, so I think this is overall a very good thing to reduce his effectiveness. Silencer has been moderately changed. Global Silence cooldown decreased, so Global Silence is better. The duration has been increased, 4, 5, 6 instead of 3, 4.5. Base damage, base intelligence increased by 6. Base damage reduced by 6. That's cool. So, oops, what did I do? Oh, I must have oops. I think we're still good. Yeah, we're still good. So the base, his net damage is the same at level 1. It's not changed at all. His base damage is reduced by 6. His base int is increased by 6. The only thing that this adjusts is how much damage his glaives do. So that means his glaives will now do more damage, which is actually a net buff. So he's basically slightly buffing the hero. If the glaives I think are no different in terms of their damage. So that means if glaives do 30%, that means he gets an extra 2 pure damage at level 1, basically. Curse of the Silent duration rescaled to 6 permanent. The HP drain rescaled, so the HP drain is a little better late game. And the mana drain rescaled to be worse at level 1, but better at level 4. So it's basically encouraging you to actually level up Curse of the Silent. Something I never do when I play Silencer, but there are going to be reasons to do this now, and we'll go over that in a second. The Insteel from Last Word has been moved back to Glaives of Wisdom. This is like the 4th time it's been moved back and forth. That means to get the Insteel, you have to have a skill point in Glaives of Wisdom. Very important. Also, it now steals Intelligence from outside the AoE. Silencer gets a kill, which is really cool. Because before, Curse of the Silent obviously could do damage over time, or sometimes you would throw an orb and then walk away, and you'd be outside the XP range and you'd lose the Insteel, which is very frustrating. The AoE has increased from 850 to the standard 900 AoE range. I didn't know that existed before. That was probably based on the aura, maybe. I'm not sure. And Last Word is now replaced. That was the previous aura that if somebody casts a spell, they would be silenced for a couple seconds. That skill was anti-fun, I dare say, and it was just not fun to play against, and it was annoying. I think it was the best way to describe it. Very annoying aura. It's now chased with an exchange with an active ability. I saw this a couple days ago, and I was really excited about it. It looks cool. Targets an enemy unit placed in debuff. When the debuff is active, this is very confusing, so listen carefully. When the debuff is active, casting a spell causes the target to become silenced and take damage. So if I put the debuff on somebody, if they cast a spell, they take damage and they get silenced. Now, if the duration of the debuff runs out without them casting the spell, which means no damage, no silence, then they'll still take damage and be silenced, but also disarmed. I didn't read that part before. It was either I misread it or I was confused, or they changed it when I saw the patch notes 2 days ago. They'll still take damage and be silenced, but also disarmed. So what this does is it gives Silencer a nuke, and that is a huge deal. Previously, before, as a Silencer, it was like, I have to play him hard carry bust. That was the only way to play him. So now he has a nuke that can do damage. That's so cool. But most importantly, if your opponents don't cast a spell, they get disarmed. The disarm duration is 3 to 6 seconds, as is the silence. It depends on what the level is. This also gives him feasibility against a hard carry that does right clicks. You can cast Last Word. Is it called Last Word now? Yeah, it's still called Last Word. You cast it on a hard carry like a Drow Ranger. If she doesn't cast Silence, she gets disarmed after 6 seconds. And silenced and takes the damage. That's really cool. I really like this. You can use it in conjunction. By the way, there's the mana cost. Mana cost, oh, that's cooldown. Cooldown is very low at level 4, 12 seconds. I dare say we'll see all Silencers max this skill first now. Guaranteed. Silencers will max this skill first at all points in the game. They might do some Curse of the Silent harass, but I'd be a little surprised. But I think we'll see Silencers now grab 1 Glaives, max Last Word with 1 Curse of the Silent, and then max Curse of the Silent as a support Silencer. That's what I expect to see. He did recently get a strength buff as well, so I think as a whole, support Silencer is going to be feasible now. He still doesn't have disables, but he has utility, and he has a damage nuke. All things that previously he didn't have. He was limited to Curse of the Silent or Last Word, and it really wasn't very good. So I'm really excited about this. I think this is a really cool buff to the hero. And not to mention, Last Word didn't even stack with his ulti, so you pop your ulti and they can't cast a spell for 5 seconds, and then you're like, well, I put 4 skill points into Last Word, and this is doing nothing during the most crucial point of the team fight. Because they stack too hard. So I think this is awesome. Really great buff to Silencer. I think this is just made, we'll see him played at least on a pub level more often. And it gives some cool, I don't know, gives you something to do rather than just right clicking and casting Curse and Silent. You have basic vision over the last word target while the initial buff's done. Cool. I love this. I think it's really cool. Alright, Sniper has some modifications as well. His assassinate cast range has increased. Headshot procs cannot be evaded. Cool. Headshot chance from 25, 30, 35, 40 to 40. That means at all levels, the headshot chance is the same. I think this is a big impact. And the headshot damage is rescaled. Okay, they actually adjusted it since when I last looked at it. The headshot damage when I looked at it was 0 at level 1, but now it's at 15. So the damage is going to be increased to 15, 40, 65, 90. That means that at level 1 headshot, it doesn't do as much damage as it did previously, but it's got the maximum proc to hit, 40 seconds. Most importantly, the mini stun is now a massive duration. Previously, look at this. This was a mini stun at level 1. 0.01. That is a non-usable mini stun. The only thing that's good for is if anybody's casting a channeling, and very few heroes have channeling spells early on in the game. So essentially, headshot was a pretty crappy skill at level 1. It only really got useful at level 3 when the stun duration was up. So that kind of required you to put 3 skill points into a skill just to get some disable and survivability. And now it's max duration. The duration is max level 1. I think this is a big impact. This is going to make a big impact in his laning, because now when you harass people, they're going to get mini stun for 0.2 seconds and you'll be able to continuously harass them and get more hits in. If they're mini stun for 0.2 seconds, it will make a difference, and it's going to mess people up while they're trying to cast spells. So that's all the headshot buffs. I think that's a massive buff to headshot. I would love to see... God, the scaling is insanely good. I would probably put 2 levels of points into headshot to get the damage up to 40 instead of 15. That's probably what I would do. Put 2 levels into headshot, and then probably max out shrapnel, because shrapnel got buffed as well. Shrapnel provides vision in the target area. The cast range increase is huge now, 1800 cast range. That's insane. So maybe I would do like 1 headshot at level 1, and maybe shrapnel 2, 3, get a take aim, get another shrapnel, max shrapnel first. Shrapnel still kind of sucks though, so it's kind of hard to say, but I think either way, you can kind of do 2 builds, I think. You can do some headshot with a lot of take aims, so you can harass the crap out of your opponent. The headshot stun duration is seriously a big deal. So, hypothetically, with take aim and headshot, you can harass much better in lane. Though shrapnel is still good for pushing. I don't know, there's 2 builds basically. You either get the shrapnel out, or you get lots of headshot stuff. So, I think we can see either. Templar Assassin gets some nerfs. A static shrapnel requires a build-up time to reach its maximum slow. It starts at 30, is increased by 5% each second until it reaches 50. What this means is that as you're chasing, as we see TAs normally played, they won't have traps set up. It's not really a trap in a way, because very few people actually have them set up. But when you put it on the ground, it'll start at 30%. So if you're chasing somebody, the slow is not going to be nearly as massive in a team fight, which is a big deal, because that was kind of an unfair part about TAs, that the traps were a little too good, because it wasn't like you're setting things up. It was more like, oh, team fight started, trap and slow everybody in the team for 50%. Now it's only going to be 30 unless they let it ramp up over 4 seconds. Terrorblade Metamorphosis damage has increased, so the scale's better. I think TB could be played at a high level, possibly. Tidehunter Ravage damage is decreased, so it's worse early. Slightly worse. Still as good at level 16. So Tidehunter getting some slight nerfs. Treant Protector strength growth is increased, so he gets more damage per level. Living Armor HP regen has been increased as well, up to 13 at level 4. So Treant Protector's really better. Venomancer are going to receive some nerfs here. Venomous Gale mana cost rescaled from 90 to 105 to, or 90 to 135 to now 125 at all levels. This is a nerf to Venomancer. It is a nerf to Venomancer. That means that as a support Venomancer, well, it's a nerf to support Venomancer. To a support Venomancer, mana is very precious, because you're casting wards usually, and Gale, and possibly your ulti if you've got the mana for it, which you usually don't. So he's not going to be as able to cast Venomous Gales. So Venomancer, slight nerf to him. Now keep in mind the damage has increased. The initial damage is actually scaling better, and the damage per tick has increased. So it's now better at level 4. So that's important. It is better at level 4, and that's why I said support Venomancers. This may encourage you going Gale first on Venomancer. You could play more likely as a solo hero. I still don't expect to see him played this way, because wards are so good, but you could play him as a solo and get slightly more damage out of Venomous Gale. The mana cost is actually less now at level 4, so it basically encourages you to put points into Venomous Gale, rather than a typical Venomancer who will max out wards, get 1 Poison Sting and 1 Gale, and then just get stat levels until you get your ultis. Because it wasn't that worth it to max out Gale. The damage was okay. It was okay. Now it is much better. Gale is going to be much better at level 4. The mana cost, you might as well put points in it, because you're already spending the same mana. There's basically no disadvantage towards putting points into the skill level. I think this is the same. I remember when Vengeful Spirit Stun was 95 mana. It was really good. people would leave it at level 1 because they wanted to always keep it at 95 mana, because you would never have to spend a lot of mana. Now the base is 110, I think, and those little mana differences make a big deal. So may see Venomancer less as a roaming hero, more as a Gale after wards hero, is what I'm predicting. At least on the pro level. Poison Sting also nerfed slightly at level 1, so this also encourages you to put points into the skill. Something that previously people didn't like doing. Warlock Infernal damage is increased by a pretty decent amount. That's a 50% buff at level 6, so pretty big buff to Warlock. Winter Wyvern, some things there, you guys can read them. I'm not going to talk about them because I haven't played the hero yet. Witch Doctor, Death Ward Aghanim's upgrade changed from 3 target split attack to 5, so this strongly increases his ulti if you get the Death Ward. The multi-attack AoE bounce is also increased, so the AoE is larger, and the cooldown has decreased by 10 seconds at all levels. So Death Ward's slightly better for Witch Doctor, slight Witch Doctor buffs. This could make him see more play, you never know. Especially with the Shadow Amulet, there's possibilities of making this work. I haven't actually played Witch Doctor since the Shadow Amulet buff, but even still I always feel like I can get decent Death Wards off, but Witch Doctors probably should stay at the outside of the fights usually. Zeus's Thunder God's Wrath damage has increased, so another buff to Zeus's ulti. And same thing with his Aghanim Scepter. It's up to 640 at level 3, or level 16, which is insane. Items, price decrease for boots by 50 gold. The movement speed is also nerfed by 5, and all boots except for boots of travel have been nerfed by 5 movement speed to make up for the fact that it costs less. It overall makes everyone slightly slower, but I don't look too much into this, guys. It's a very, very small movement speed nerf. Most importantly, the important thing is that boots of speed are cheaper, and this is, I think, an overall buff for support heroes. Heroes like hard carries are not going to have any trouble affording boots. Support heroes will, so I think this is a slight buff to any team that is behind. I guess hypothetically you could look at it as any team that's slightly ahead will get their boots earlier as well, but I think this is good, a very good buff, because there are times when a support hero is so behind and they can't afford boots. I think this is a good thing. Armlet cooldown is increased from 1 to 2 seconds. This was needed, actually. There was some abuse that you could use of this. If you're in a 1v1 teamfight with a hero, you could pretty much never die, because as you got low, you could toggle your armlet and off again and get an extra 400 HP. So this makes that window slightly smaller if their damage is up. Force Staff is getting a nerf. Recipe is reworked. Instead of costing a Staff of Wizardry, a quarter staff, and a 500 gold recipe, and costing 2,400 gold, it now costs a Staff of Wizardry, a Ring of Regeneration recipe, and a 1,000 gold recipe. So this means it only gives you 10 intelligence and 3 regeneration instead of 10 attack speed and 10 damage. This means that it's slightly cheaper by 50 gold, but most importantly, it's better for a support hero. It only gives intelligence and regen. So a hero like Crystal Maiden, it's better for her, actually. She doesn't want the damage. She doesn't really need the attack speed either. The regen is pretty good. But as a whole, it's worse. It's a worse item. This is a moderate nerf for the item. It's not as good for heroes like hard carries. It's not as good for Windrunner. Windrunner gets 10 less damage out of it and 10 less attack speed. It's not as good on heroes like Nature's Prophet. It is now being focused towards more of a full support item, which is a good thing. There will be players that are less likely to get it. If you grab the item and you're not an int hero, you're getting very, very little out of this item now. It's less good on Tiny. There's plenty of examples. It's only giving you regen in int. So it'll give you mana pool, it'll give you regen, but most importantly, you're spending 1,000 gold on a recipe, and that's important to look at that, as that is what you're paying for the utility component, and it's worth it still on a lot of heroes, but it is largely just the utility now. Largely just the utility. So it's going to make people more hard-pressed to purchase the item, which I think is necessary because it is a little too good. Null Talisman recipe cost decrease, so Null Talismans are now better. That is the one of the basic stat items that is purchased the least in the game. It's going to make Dagon cheaper by 10 gold. Woo! Rod of Atos cast range has increased from 800 to 1200. The slow increase is from 50 to 60%. I like the cast range increase. That's pretty cool. You can initiate with it a little easier. I think the item is still probably a little rough. I don't know if it's worth it quite yet, but we'll see. Shadow Amulet Fade Time is decreased very slightly, and Gameplay and Cosmetics added a new game mode called Tag Team. I don't really want to talk about that, so you guys can read over that if you want. It's all playdota.com/changelog/6.76, of course, if you guys want to look at this. Caster Unit Vision from various miscellaneous abilities. We'll not look over that. It's not really that important. And some bugs. So I think that's about it. Bugs not really worth talking about. Yeah. I think we're good. Alright, so that's the patch, guys. I hope this one was less long than the last one. I'm guessing it was like only 40 minutes instead of an hour. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Hopefully streaming today, maybe. See if I feel like it. Maybe later today. I think that's it. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.